From the Sunshine State, this is Tampa Bay's Tan Talk.
Welcome to Tampa Home Talk with your host, native Tampa real estate girl, Katrina Madewell, a full-time, passionate, out-of-the-box thinker, love for home ownership kind of realtor with over 21 years of combined mortgage and real estate experience. Tune in every week at this time for expert advice on everything you need to know about home ownership, finance, maintaining great credit, building wealth, and making your everyday life better, and how you can be financially successful today and tomorrow. Remember, love where you live or let Katrina fix it. Now, here's your host of Tampa Home Talk, Katrina Madewell.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell, and you're listening to the Real Estate Radio Network. Very proud to have with us today for our show regarding disaster restoration. We have a panel of guests that are here to give you a wealth of information, and we're going to go into some of the things you need to know before you ever even have a disaster. And we are also going to talk about what's next if you actually have to encounter one. So, very proud to have Doug Bartholomew with Sierra Construction, Paula Blanda with West Coast Insurance, and Fabian Excell with 911 Restoration. Yeah. Thank you so much, my wonderful panel, for joining me today. I'm happy to have you.
Same here.
Are you excited to be here?
Very much so.
Are you ready to have fun?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we're going to have a blast like we do on most of our shows here on Tampa Home Talk, but we're also going to bring you a lot of really great information. I always like to ask my guests what are their top 5 questions that they get. And then especially in a business like yours, Doug and Fabian, where you guys have the aftermath and people are coming in and then it's kind of too late to fix the insurance stuff. Right, Paula?
Yes, exactly right, Katrina.
So I think with that being said, I would love to start with you and just talk about, you know, what are some of the things that people should be looking for? And, you know, I'm just going to chime through some of the top 5 questions you guys get. And then if you could come back to what are the things you should be looking for in your insurance policy before you ever have to actually make a claim or meet with you guys. And so I know some of the questions, Doug, you said you get in advance is it covered? How much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take? Right?
Very common from all the homeowners because this is, you know, a sudden unforeseen circumstance that they're not prepared for, and they have a lot of questions wanting that information. And
we're going to dive into each one of those questions and then some in detail. But Paula, if I could take the person listening back to the insurance stuff.
Sure.
Because really, you know as well as I do, that's where it starts, right? If you don't have the proper insurance, it's a mess for you guys to clean up.
Exactly. And it's funny that Doug and I were comparing notes and we found we both experienced the same questions from our clients. First of all, they call me right away when they've had a claim. Oh my God, am I covered? What's my deductible? Oh my God, can I repair this myself? We get a lot of the same questions. So what we like to advise our clients is with us or any of your agents, please review your policy and understand your coverages and deductibles. So often you don't want to find out you've got a very high deductible after you've had that pipe burst.
So I want to take this down a notch, like I do for every single one of my shows, and just kind of bring it down to as lay term as possible.
You got it.
And relate it to something that people can actually relate to.
Sure.
So let's go with your same example.
I am going to give you a good example. I had clients in a very upscale home. They called because they had noticed some moisture in their kitchen. Well, here they moved the refrigerator and it was the line to their ice maker that was starting to drip. And they had noticed a little bit of black stuff back behind the refrigerator. Well, they didn't really think much of it. They waited a couple of weeks to call. And then when they called, they weren't really sure, gosh, is this covered? What is this? They just weren't really too concerned about it. They didn't try to help mitigate or stop any more moisture from coming in. That's a fancy insurance term, mitigate. That just means, gosh, stop that water from coming in. Or, gosh, if you guys do get your roof blown off, please put a tarp on it. Try to keep the claim confined as much as you can. But they had kind of waited, and then they said, well, we'll just wait till we hear from the adjuster and they come out and this and that. Well, finally, they waited weeks and weeks and weeks while they get out there. They had a huge mold problem. This leak had been going on for quite some time.
Because by the time you actually see it,
yes,
it's usually been there for a while.
Yes, exactly. Well, ended up we had to do a whole new kitchen for these folks. But we thought, gosh, had they maybe acted a little bit quicker, it might have helped them curtail this a little bit.
So how is that like from the insurance side of things? Like how does I know the insurance company obviously wants you to keep their losses at a minimum.
Yes, they do. And that's a question I think that all of us get here with Doug and Fabian and myself. Of course, they say, gosh, what do we need to do? They say, try to just stop what you can. If you can turn off that water source, if you can plug it up, you can take photos, you can get tarps, you can buy supplies. You will ultimately be reimbursed for that stuff as well. But we do want folks to kind of get in there and try to do what they can as soon as possible.
So let's say that I'm looking at my homeowner's insurance policy.
Yes.
What type of things should I be looking for specifically, exactly, and where on the policy should I find it?
Sure. Well, in Florida, we do have 2 deductibles, kind of special for our state. Most other states don't have this as of yet. One deductible is for all other perils, and you have another second deductible that's just for...
Wait, just chime in. Elaborate on that a little bit.
I will.
Okay.
I will. All other perils is any other peril that the policy will cover that's not wind related, because we all have separate wind deductibles or a hurricane deductible. So all other peril deductible will cover if you have your pipe break generally, your house broken into, things such as that, any other peril, fire, smoke damage. So it's the AOP, they call it, all other peril deductible. You can have deductibles, and of course, this is the money you pay out of pocket first before your company will come in and kick in. It's your out-of-pocket expense. They hover around $500, $1,000, $2,000, $2,500, even up to $5,000. And of course, on insurance, the higher your deductible, the lower your premium is. So the trend that we see here in Florida is that a lot of folks are getting higher and higher deductibles. So that's one thing that we want everybody to look at on their policy. Know and understand your deductible.
We were discussing this actually at our planning meeting yesterday for lunch, and we were saying, it's my personal belief that I'm not personally going to make a claim unless it's something big.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Other people, it might be a little bit different, but we talked about having that emergency fund set aside and having that money saved. So it's no big deal for me to have a $2,000 deductible, because I'm going to have that in an emergency fund in case, God forbid, the house burns down.
Sure,
right?
That's you. And everybody's a little bit different. We do have some folks that have had huge losses in the past. I have a client that lost her whole home in a fire. She carries the lowest deductible possible. Well, she's been through this experience, God bless her, and she likes to keep that low deductible now just in case. But
right.
But
and that may change, what your decision is moving forward. God forbid, I've never experienced that, not as an adult anyway.
Yes. And of course, with policyholders out there with you folks, you can change your deductibles. In some cases with certain companies, you can change your deductible only when your policy comes up for renewal. But it's things that you can alter and change as you move forward. You don't have to keep the same coverage from year to year. You can always alter that.
So for the purpose of our show, we're talking about mold, which you mentioned.
Yes.
Fire, flooding. What else am I leaving out?
Well, I wanted to mention real quickly, too,
hurricane.
And you guys have probably seen it a lot, pipe damage, pipe breaks, and water in the homes. The one thing I want everyone to review, if they have rental properties, because rental home insurance is a little bit different than homeowner insurance. And on many rental home policies, it does not include any pipe damage or any claims to do with pipes. And if you folks have rental homes out there, even sometimes secondary homes and whatnot, review that policy so you know, are my pipes covered or not, because it is one big claim we do see.
It's interesting. So that's really an exclusion to the policy.
Yes, it is.
Where would someone locate that on their insurance policy? Because you get your deck page, which has the numbers on it.
In some cases, and it varies from carrier to carrier, it could be listed on the deck page as an exclusion, or in some cases, it's right in the policy form. If you don't see it or don't have the time, heck, just call your agent and review it. Your agent should know right off. But that is very common in rental home policies, and a lot of folks don't realize it.
You bring up a really good point. And yesterday when we were talking, I didn't mention it, but I was thinking, we do a homeowner annual review.
Yes.
For every single one of our clients. We check in with them when they purchase their home on their homeowner anniversary to find out, hey, what's changed? Is anything new? Do you need our help? Can we connect you with someone? Just to see where they're at. Because stuff changes. People get married, they get divorced, they have babies.
Yes. And it does change yearly, too. And of course, the insurance companies now in Florida, there's also a trend where your coverages can change from your own insurance company. You could have sinkhole coverage this year, and next year when your policy renews, they may remove the sinkhole coverage. So it is very, very good to renew. What we do in our agency for our clients is we reshop the marketplace. It changes daily in Florida. It's very volatile. We have over 40 carriers. So when policies come up for renewal, we do like to reshop it. Maybe there'll be another company that might be more competitive rates for our clients.
Right.
And you can ask your agents to do so as well. You don't have to necessarily stay with that same company year after year.
So for today's show, let's use a lot of examples around fire. Does that sound good to you guys?
Sure.
Just because
I wanted to say something, though, in reference to what you said earlier, because there is flood insurance and then there's also water damage. Which there is a difference between the two. Flood insurance is It's a little bit different as opposed to a water damage. And some people think because that they have a flood in their house, they're calling and saying, oh, I have a flood. And sometimes it's not a flood. And I think the homeowners need to be educated on what is a flood and what is a water damage, because a pipe bursting or the line to the washing machine coming off, a line behind the fridge coming off, that's a water damage. Flooding is...
Paula, am I correct in saying rising water is the difference?
You are.
between
That's
flood?
exactly it. Flood policies, rising waters. If Katrina comes into town, Katrina...
I know. Everybody can spell my name. They can say it. I get it. I heard all the jokes. I'm good with it.
But if the big one comes and we have 3 feet of water, rising tidal waters, or if you live in some of those older neighborhoods where the streets might, even today in a summer storm, some of the streets flood up, if that comes into your house, that is considered a flood for insurance purposes.
So, Doug Bartholomew with Sierra Construction, let's chime in a little bit. Tell me about your experience, your background, because I know that you manage a lot of stuff over there at Sierra Construction. So let's talk about. We'll use our fire example too. So,
all right. Well, we handle a lot of fire, a lot of flood, and when I use flood, we also in the industry use that kind of interchangeable between water damage and flood. But Paula's
that's probably
100%.
One of the funnest things you guys get to explain, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, this is a flood. Why isn't it covered under flood insurance? Well, and Paula can probably speak to it a little bit more as far as the details that are related to rising groundwater, so many square miles or acres affected in an area, name storms, things of that nature. But we handle a lot more on a regular day-to-day basis, and I'm sure Fabian will see it, a lot more household fires, electrical fires or things that go wrong with washing machines, appliances, busted pipes. At Sierra, we also do residential, light commercial, and we do ADA access processes.
And your company's been around for a while, correct?
Yeah, Paul's been in the construction industry for about 40 years in the Tampa Bay marketplace, and he's handled a lot of residential things, a lot of commercial properties. There's some things on a USF campus that he's helped build, along with other commercial properties that you see running through as you drive through town. So
when people ask, like, for example, they have a fire, and so Paula, chime in on this. What's the most common deductible you see? Is it 2%, $2,000, or is that too high?
Well, I'd say generally they're hovering $1,000 or $2,500. Some companies now even offer a $5,000 all other peril or fire deductible, if you may. So the trend is going higher, but most folks are at $1,000 or $2,500.
Okay, so let's use for our example here. We have a $1,000 deductible.
Okay,
2% hurricane.
Sure.
And I have a fire. So tell me, Doug, how, they want to know, hey, is this covered? Like, what's covered exactly? I've lost everything. I don't even have my pictures from my kids where I gave birth other than what I put on Facebook. So what's covered?
Right, and as a restoration professional, we cannot make that determination when we come into your home. We can tell you what's damaged, what we can do to repair the damage, what things that we might be able to save for you, but we cannot determine coverage. That's strictly up to your insurance carrier and the adjuster to interpret the policy to determine coverages. Fortunately, I am a licensed adjuster in the state of Florida. I don't practice because it's a little bit of a conflict in what I do.
But it's excellent knowledge that goes hand in hand with what you do, I'm sure.
Yeah, it helps me out quite a bit, and I can sometimes help guide the homeowner. I can't bind coverage or determine coverage for the insurance carrier, but it gives them a little bit of guidance on what directions to go, what to ask their adjusters and their carriers when they start with the claim process.
So in your opinion, and speaking really to all three of you, if you have someone in our example that's had a fire, and they are now basically trying to figure out where to start. Obviously, they should call their insurance person first. But what kind of things should they be asking? Where should they really begin?
Well, you want to look for, obviously, yes, make that claim. Get your guidance from your insurance carrier to determine what's covered, what's not covered. But as Paula said, mitigating the damages, which is that fancy insurance term for stopping the damages from getting worse, because soot, as it sits on certain materials, can stain. It can leave pitting on certain metals, faucets, handles, brass, certain tins. Getting those cleaned up as quickly as possible so that they are actually saved instead of permanently damaged. Beginning that process is the first thing by contacting a restoration professional. And you want someone who is licensed, someone that has qualifications and certifications. The I don't want to throw out a lot of acronyms.
So
out there,
who are you guys regulated through?
We're kind of regulated through a self-governing body,
Okay.
which is the IICRC, which is the Institute for Inspection, Cleaning, and Restoration Certification.
So sort of like home inspectors were several years ago. They weren't required to be licensed in the last 3 years. Is that similar or no?
It's somewhat similar. They home inspectors had their own body that governed them and kind of gave them guidance.
Right.
And the IICRC does that for us, along with a couple of other industry guidelines that are there. But when you're looking at mold specifically, there are state laws that are required for mold licensing for assessors, which are the people that come out and determine what the mold is and what needs to take place.
So I imagine when it comes to restoration companies, one size doesn't fit all. We're not all created equal, and we have to take a quick break. And when we get back, we are going to dive into those details. Back in just a minute.
Hi, this is Melissa Rogers, owner of SEC Inspection Services. We're so glad that you're listening today, that we're offering you a special deal. If you're purchasing a home, you can have $50 off your full home inspection. And if you're already a client of ours, we're offering 10% off of any other service that we offer. Just give us a call at 727-786-4663 or visit us on the web at secinspection.com.
If you are a real estate agent and want to keep more of your hard-earned commission, call me today at 727-538-9200 extension 2. This call will change your real estate career.
Curious where your credit score is? Text the word credit to 813-377-2775. Not sure where it needs to be in order to buy? We'll tell you. Simply text the word credit to 813-377-2775 for access to your credit score now.
Hi, I'm Ike Antonio Thomas, Director of Salitas House, where we offer homeownership workshops, pre-purchase counseling, foreclosure intervention counseling for homeowners at risk of losing their home, financial coaching for adults and teens. Come sign up for our program where if you save $1,000, we'll give you $1,000. Call us 813-425-4847. Again, 813-425-4847. You can like us on Facebook or you can find us on the web, salitashouse.com.
Curious what your Tampa home is worth? Here's an easy way to find out what homes like yours are selling for in today's market. Text the word value to 813-377-2775 for a free report on Tampa house prices. We'll send you a free report with up-to-the-minute statistics based on all homes for sale sold in your neighborhood over the last 6 months in all price ranges. To get your free report on Tampa Bay house prices, just call or text the word value to 813-377-2775. Welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. You are listening to The Blanda Show. Just kidding. That was our joke over the break. Seriously, welcome back. This is your host, Katrina Madewell with Charles Rutenberg Realty, and you're listening to the Real Estate Radio Network. Really happy to have in studio with me today Paula Blanda with West Coast Insurance, Doug Bartholomew with Sierra Construction, and Fabian Excell with 911 Restoration. So we talked about, how much is it gonna? Well, we didn't get into how much it's gonna cost yet, but we said, where do we start? How do we know if it's covered? And so, I had another guest on a while back that kind of enlightened me, if you will, on your business a little bit, and some of the questions that he was mentioning that you should ask of an adjuster, or like he called them fire chasers, and I was like, really? I've never even heard that term before. I'm so jaded in my own industry. But so let's share on what makes your company different. What makes you different, Doug, with Sierra Construction?
Well, one of the things is part of our tagline. We've been building confidence and restoring confidence in Tampa for nearly 40 years. We've been around. We have licensed contracting people that work for us. We are a licensed general contractor. We can handle not only the cleanup, but we can handle the rebuild from A to Z. We can be out there to help board up that fire job as soon as the fire happens, and we'll be out there with the last occupancy inspection, and we handle it from start to finish. There are companies out there that do one or the other, and there are construction companies out there that do a fine job of restoration work, but that's not what they focus on. And there are restoration companies that don't focus on on construction. We kind of have everything that's there, not to mention the commitment to the customer as number one and the quality of service that we provide. And our knowledge is huge that we have in the industry.
Well, I imagine like our business, there's a lot of moving parts, right? From the time that you dig through the claims adjuster to the insurance stuff to the where are we going to start to the let's build you a new home.
Yeah, it's somewhat like a juggling act because you've got so many things that are going on because you're dealing with the insurance company, you're dealing with the homeowner, you're dealing with your own in-house guys, you're dealing with your subs, making sure everything's lined up. You're dealing with the city and county permitting and inspection processes.
That can be fun just in itself, isn't it?
You could put it that way as fun. That's not necessarily some ways that other people put it, but yeah.
I told you I have a quirky sense of humor. Yeah. You have to roll with it, Doug.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but basically, what's the, like, I forgot where I was going with that.
That's
I do
all right.
it regularly. Where's my blooper show? Are you saving this? Anyway, so, Fabian, you want to chime in? What makes you guys a little bit different?
That's the same thing. We have a licensed GC in-house that is one of the owners of the company as well. We handle from start to finish. Same thing with the permitting, dealing with adjusters, the insurance company. You have a desk adjuster, you have the field adjuster, you have the city you got to deal with, you got codes you got to deal with, code upgrades, and so forth. So it's basically the same thing as Sierra that we handle.
No, you guys didn't you tell me that you started in South Florida, or you do a lot of stuff in South Florida?
Yeah, I started originally in South Florida. And
okay.
Now I'm here in Tampa.
And they've had their share, right, with Hurricane Andrew and
yes,
a lot of that.
And
type
not even
of stuff.
Hurricane Andrew. I mean, I've also been to the Pentagon after 9/11. There doing the cleanup with another company when I was with Service Master. So the experience it's very large, and South Florida is a little bit different from Tampa as well, but it's coming along.
Definitely, we're not quite the city that Miami is yet, but.
Can I bring up a note, especially with our experts here?
Absolutely.
Your insurance carriers want you to hire experts. To be quite honest, if you have a fire and your kitchen is burnt down, they don't want you to hire your brother-in-law to come in and do repair work when he's not licensed or experienced.
We talked about that actually yesterday. That's, in our business, not to use jargon, but it's the difference between an arm's length transaction and a non-arm's length transaction.
Yes.
Meaning you're a little too close for comfort for the insurance company's likability.
Yes. And that is a trend we see more and more with our insurance carriers. They do require you to have licensed and insured, knowledgeable people doing the repair work.
Do they get to choose, or does ultimately the homeowner get the final say on who they want to use?
Well, it kind of melds together. A lot of the homeowners do have contractors they've worked with, and the insurance carrier can put their stamp of approval on them and work with them as well. So it's somewhat of a melding of the minds there.
What's going to determine the yes or no?
Well,
answer?
let's use that example. You had a fire, you want your brother-in-law to come in. Well, does your brother-in-law have a general contractor license? Does he know how to pull permits? Does he have license and bonded in subs, if you may, if he's going to hire plumbers or painters or electricians? It's all of that melded into one. You want the experts in there doing your repairs. And God forbid if you've got the mold and the soot, there's a lot that goes with that. Some folks, quite frankly, go to a weekend course. They come out, they've got a little license, and they've never done this in their life. That's funny, the reality.
It's funny that you mentioned soot, Doug, because, I explained I've never had a fire in my adult life. We had one when I was a child, but it wasn't anything I remember. But the only experience I personally have ever really had with soot, and it's going to sound stupid, retarded, but I have a purpose for bringing it up. When my husband and I built a new house many years ago, it was our first house, and there were... it was just him and I and the dog. So we had 2 extra bedrooms that really didn't get used. And, we'd keep the doors closed so the dogs wouldn't go in there. Well, I would burn candles and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that in the back bedroom, especially the one that always stays closed, there's this little black line under the door. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. So I called the builder back and I'm like, something's wrong. Your carpet must be defective. Like, I don't understand why there's a black line running under the door. And so one of the things I learned with time was, okay, if that was a little candle that did that much, because they later, sent it to the lab and said, oh, by the way, Miss Madewell, that's soot under the door. And I'm like, really? So I'm thinking, okay, if a little fire did that much damage, it wasn't even a fire, it was a candle, did that much for soot, and I imagine even just burning candles, it's going to be in your home.
You do have, when you burn, a lot of people burn candles because they like the ambience, they like the sometimes the fragrance that it puts out, but you do, what you're speaking of is, in the industry, we call that a filtration line. Your carpet is actually filtering the air as it comes underneath the door, and it's grabbing that soot and putting it onto those fibers. But But that little bit is amazing what settles throughout a home. We've done cleanups of homes because of homeowners like to burn a lot of candles, and they never notice it because you acclimate to it. You don't see a little bit at a time. But when you go to sell a home, as you being in the real estate industry, you see a lot of different things. You notice as you pull pictures off the wall, as you move things off the mantle, there's a lot of discoloration, and we'll go in and we'll clean up and get prepared for sale.
So you're telling me that you've had experiences where people have actually went in to sell their home. They started taking their personal pictures off the wall like we tell them to do, and all of those things, and they notice literally like a black line around
there's
the
a
picture.
differentiation that's there because what's behind that picture, that wall wasn't actually touched by the soot, so it's still that white or whatever color the paint was versus everything else has got a strange tint. We find that a lot, more so in people that smoke inside their house, that it's the yellow tar tint that's throughout. But
I have seen those homes. Is that covered under insurance, Paula? I have to ask that question. I've seen that. I've been into homes where the people are older and that's just the generation they lived in, but you walk in and you need a nebulizer when you leave because where they've taken the pictures off the wall, you can literally see the ring around the wall.
Generally, no, it's not covered. It's somewhat of a maintenance issue, if you may. It wasn't caused by a specific peril, like a fire, if you may.
So is the same thing with the soot and the burning candles?
There. Yes. It's not necessarily a covered peril, but that was a great question.
It's an interesting point because it's a little things that I think people never think of. I mean, if you smoke, you don't think about it. I don't smoke, so I see it. But if you don't burn candles, you might see that where someone else may not. Since that time, I obviously don't burn candles anymore because I didn't realize.
Sure.
My point behind bringing that up is you have, a little candle or a couple candles or whatever it is, and then you magnetize that by what, 1,000 when you have a house fire?
Easily 1,000, if not a much higher number than that. Because, one of the things that you see when you go in is soot is aerosolized. So anywhere the air is moving, that soot's going to travel to. And it can be attracted to a colder surface. It can be attracted to the nail heads, the magnetic surfaces that there's because the ionization process that happens when the fire changes. And I don't mean to get too far into detail.
I love that because I think, you talk to somebody like me, I don't even understand what the chemical makeup of soot is. Really, I don't.
It varies.
You can give me a contract. I can dissect that. But when it comes to soot, I'm green. That's why y'all are here.
Yeah. Well, wood fires have a different soot content as opposed to plastic fires or electrical fires, and they all leave a different odor and a different residue that needs to be cleaned differently or handled in a different deodorization process manner for it to be effective when everything's said and done. Our objective when we walk into that house fire or we walk into that flood is we want, when we're done, just like any other restoration contractor that's out there, the homeowner to walk back into their home and it looks like it did when they remember the house without that fire, without that flood. And 99% of the time, it looks better than it did the day before the fire.
We could probably bring a therapist in for our panel, right, to talk about the aftermath of a flood.
Yeah.
So and you guys, Fabian, you and Doug could both chime in on this because I know that when I met with you both, you told me one of the questions you always get, and even you hear that, Paula, is how long is this going to take?
Yeah, always. That's one of the first questions, especially if it's badly damaged. And there's really as much as we try to answer that question for them, let them know, I know the dry out is going to take between 3 and 5 days, but getting their house back in order is really not determined up to us. It's based on their adjuster and how quick things get processed so we can get in there and do what needs to be done.
So for the person listening that has no idea, and obviously if you guys are faced with a storm or something like that, that's going to multiply the number of claims, multiply the number of work. It's going to obviously add to the time that it takes. But in a normal situation where someone's had a house fire, and I know it probably depends on the size of the home and the extent of the damage and all of that stuff, but can you walk someone through that would be listening what the timeline would look like, specifically with the stuff you mentioned, like if you have water or whatever, you got to dry it out?
On a flood, it's one thing. On a fire, it takes a little bit longer because even to get started on a fire, we can start emergency services and so forth, but we have to wait for the inspection from the county. They want to see what caused the fire and so forth, and that kind of slows down the process of getting in and out as fast as we would like to. Now, once we get in there and we have, the right paperwork signed and we're ready to start, our goal is to get in and out as quick as possible. Usually sometimes it takes 3 weeks, sometimes it takes 3 months, believe it or not. It all depends on what the situation is and what was the cause.
Now, for the counties, they are rightfully so looking for that, and I'm sure you guys can chime on this too. But I have experienced recently some of the certain electrical boxes, and I think one of them is Sierra Pacific. Is that right, or Standard Pacific? That's one. That's one on the hazard list. You can probably chime in a lot better than I can, Paula, on that. But they are like homeowners insurance companies won't even give you insurance if you have those boxes.
Sure. Yes. If I could speak on that for a moment, for a lot of the older homes, they have to pass a 4-point insurance inspection to qualify to purchase a new homeowner policy. Part of that 4-point inspection is the roof, heating and air conditioning, plumbing, and then your electrical. For example, if some older houses still may have a fuse box and not a breaker box, they might not be able to find an insurance policy depending on where they're located and depending on the carriers available.
We used to joke about the knob and tube, but I really don't think there's any insurance company that will really insure that anymore.
True. And there are some breaker boxes that the insurance carriers do not like because they have been known to be faulty.
You know which ones they are? Because I know there's some that had, multiple house fires, bankruptcies, companies out of business. So now that's why the insurance carriers won't write for them. But do you know who they are?
There are several, and I don't want to misspeak because I'm not sure of the exact brands, but we could get that out to the listeners if need be and put it on the site so they could even check their own box at the house.
We'll have Paula Blanda with West Coast Insurance give us that information, and we will post it on our website at tampahometalk.com. And we're also on Facebook and Twitter, so we'll make sure we get you that information.
Well, what I wanted to mention is you guys were speaking about the length of time to repair after a fire. Most folks might not realize, but on a typical homeowner policy, there's loss of use coverage. It's called loss of use. If you do lose the use of your home for a claim, let's say you do have a fire, you can get reimbursed if you need to go stay in a motel or buy meals or buy clothes or what have you. Most of it, with most carriers, is capped at 10 or 20% of the value of your dwelling, so everybody will have different coverages, but it is called loss of use, and it's a great coverage to have on there if you are displaced.
So the loss of use, like how much is that going to cover, and does it matter if they stay with a family member, if they have to stay in a hotel? Like, it's probably just a fractional percentage, right?
It is a percentage. Let's say hypothetically, if you had coverage on your house for $100,000, and on your particular policy, they might give you 10% of that towards your loss of use. So you may have up to $10,000 to reimburse you for your loss of use. And it is for living expenses, clothing, the food, clothing, shelter, basically, if you may. And sometimes you can't stay with your family members and still get reimbursement because you are incurring a lot of.
Yeah. I mean, their bills are going up.
Yes,
because you're staying with them.
Not in the house. So it's called loss of use. And I think, Doug, did you have something?
I think he's going to chime in.
There was one thing I wanted to chime in, not necessarily about the loss of use, but another section, Paula, that I'd like you to touch upon, if you can, from the is what's called law and ordinance, because Fabian was talking about, and you were questioning about the length of time it takes, and there are a lot of different things that go into that. What type of building, what type of structure, how badly was it damaged? Do you have to, because of the safety of the structure, have to have an engineer come in and reevaluate and engineer the trusses, the walls, anything else? But
you are on track, and that is the perfect time for me to take a break so that our listeners will come right back to Tampa Home Talk. And my producer is giving me a signal. We're going to be back in just a minute with Doug Bartholomew to finish answering that question. Back in a minute.
Hi, this is Aaron Davis, owner of Hillsborough Title. Hillsborough Title is a local, family-owned title agency here in Tampa Bay. Our service, strength, and knowledge make us different. We've served Tampa Bay area for over 30 years. From Polk County to the Gulf, Pasco to Manatee, Tampa Bay, we've got you covered. Call us at 813-712-8888 or visit us on the web at thebesttitle.com. That's thebesttitle.com.
Ask me about an inside secret to save several hundreds of dollars on your annual homeowner's insurance premium. Text the word WIND, W-I-N-D, to 813-377-2775. Again, 813-377-2775.
I'm John Rakowski, the broker with Charles Ruttenberg Realty. If you are a real estate agent and want to keep more of your hard-earned commission, call me today at 727-538-9200 extension 2. This call will change your real estate career.
Hi, I'm Antonio Thomas, Director of Salitas House, where we offer homeownership workshops, pre-purchase counseling, foreclosure intervention counseling for homeowners at risk of losing their home, financial coaching for adults and teens. Come sign up for our program where if you save $1,000, we'll give you $1,000. Call us 813-425-4847. Again, 813-425-4847. 4847. You can like us on Facebook or you can find us on the web, SalidasHouse.com.
Hi, this is Melissa Rogers, owner of SEC Inspection Services, where we offer full inspections and insurance inspections. Give us a call at 727-786-4663 or visit us on the web at secinspection.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk here on the Real Estate Radio Network. This is your host, Katrina Madewell. In studio today, we have Paula Blanda with West Coast Insurance, Doug Bartholomew with Sierra Construction, and Fabian Excell with 911 Restoration. So where we left off with our listener.
Well, I was just explaining about sometimes the structure will need to have an engineer come in and evaluate the safety of the structure, and we may have to put better trusses, better foundation issues, better wiring in there. There is a section in a lot of the policies that's called law and ordinance, and that is when the structure is being affected and you're doing some remodeling or renovation according to the ordinance, you have to bring certain parts of that structure that you're impacting up to current code standards. And that is an option that's usually on most policies. And I want to let Paula, or ask Paula to go into that a little bit about that. Because
excellent point.
It does affect the timing of the repair. It does affect the cost of the repair. And the ordinances are there for what a lot of people think to help the municipalities generate money, but it's really for the safety of the people in the structure.
And they're for the homeowner protection. I mean, we had the chief building official and the property appraiser on our show before in the past, and they chimed in on that. And a lot of the things that you had to have a permit for, I was just shocked. But as you said, Doug, they do that for the health, the safety, and the well-being of not only yourself, but your neighbors around you, right? Correct. If your roof is not strapped on properly and we get a storm, it can fly off and break your neighbor's windows. I mean,
exactly. And a lot of contractors, we face it every day when we're pulling permits or having inspections, and it becomes frustrating because of the changes. But we also have to realize it's there for the safety of the community. So, but if Paula could talk about it.
And from our point, when you guys go to resell that property, you're likely going to be required to get a 4-point insurance inspection. And at that point, they're going to be looking, if you have a new roof, they want to see the permit. So don't try to take corners, cut corners and stuff, because they're going to make you go in and get after the fact permits, and it's going to cost you more money later.
Which is something that refers back to talking about hiring a licensed contractor instead of your brother-in-law or your cousin to come in and do the handyman repair. They can pull the permits. We know what we're looking for. We know what inspections need to take place. And
here's the thing, too, Doug, that what I've encountered, just to respond to what you said, it's not always about, they're having their cousin or their brother do it. Sometimes they have licensed contractors that are there doing it, but they don't pull permits. I've seen it. It's crazy.
We've come in and corrected issues and items where people have not pulled permits in the past and had to take care of those situations for the homeowner to help them out and get them back on track of where they need to be. It's not just the permitting thing, it's a liability process. If they're not licensed, they're usually not insured either. Something goes wrong, you have a defectiveness in their workmanship or their product, you as the homeowner and a year later are looking for them, they're no longer able to be found. And so who's stuck on the hook to take care of that repair?
And the bad part is, too, if somebody has that, and let's say they had a company that started and for whatever reason they went out of business, you guys don't want to pick that up. Because you don't know what they started.
Exactly. We don't want to pick it up, and she can talk a little bit about the coverages from a commercial, but I know we're getting way off track.
No, it's perfect. So what did you said? We called that law and ordinance section?
Ordinance and law, another fancy insurance term.
It sounds like a TV show.
Doesn't it?
Law and order.
Well, most folks might not realize it's generally built into your policy if you have a typical homeowner policy. And it's the general built-in amount is 25% of ordinance and law coverage over and above your dwelling coverage.
Okay, so let's go with your same example. $100,000 coverage.
You have a $100,000 homeowner policy. Your house burns down. You've got to rebuild it. You've got to rebuild it to current code. They will give you up to 25% over and above that $100,000. So you'd actually be able to have $125,000 available to rebuild. But I'll give you a really good example in our area. Out on the beach communities or on lakes or on the water, a lot of the communities now you've got to build up. So you've got those old homes built in the 50s and 60s down on slabs, but your neighbor is built up on stilts because you're out on St. Pete Beach. If the slab house burns down, when they rebuild, they've got to build back up, so it can be much more expensive. But that's kind of a good visual I think folks can have to rebuild to current code.
I have a question while we're on that, and I know it's totally off topic, but that's kind of how my mind works, I guess. If you were in that position and let's say you rebuilt a house that was either slab or stilt, obviously the quality of construction changes with time. The building codes change. I mean, heck, after our storms, we had how many building codes changes within a couple years? A lot, but they're for the better. I noticed there was a couple properties I showed on the beach, and they were built up on stilts, but they were like steel reinforced beams. I would imagine if I was on the beach and I lived in that type of home and I had to rebuild, that's what I would want. So I'm just curious from an insurance perspective, if you're significantly updating what you had from a home built in the 50s and going to something like that. Can you chime in on that, both of you?
Well, what we want people to do, too, if you do put a lot of upgrades even into your current home, if you had an older home, you're dumping $100,000 into the kitchen and whatnot, go over that with your agent because you do want to increase the value of your home. If you've just put in a $100,000 kitchen, you want to increase your insurance by $100,000 to provide the correct coverage and keep reviewing that from year to year. It is very, very crucial.
Policy review?
Exactly.
Didn't you tell me to do that with all your clients?
Yes, we do. Every year, religiously, we have to.
I had a client that had a house fire in a home that he moved out of. It ended up being a bad neighborhood in Georgia. They relocated back to Florida. Mm-hmm. So you imagine what kind of problems that was from a vacant home, and they had been vandalized, I guess, by gangs or whatever in the neighborhood, and it had started a fire. And one of the points that my client made, which I thought was a very good point, he said, my insurance agent's taken my check for years, but never once have they called me to see if anything changed, at my annual review, to see if anything's different, to see if I needed any more coverage, to ask me if anything had changed with the home.
Yes, and especially in Florida with our volatile market, we've got new companies that might be coming in. You've got companies that are changing your policy. We are the most challenging state in the United States to write insurance, and so it's crucial just to review that with your agent. So we want all of you folks to get to know your agent and have a good relationship with them and review that policy for you.
I think it's huge, and that's the difference between the good companies and the great companies. Like I can sell a home to anybody, but me being there 10 years after the fact when their kids are ready to buy, that's huge.
Yes.
And
agreed,
it's the same for you. I mean, you've been in this for a long time. You come from a couple generations there of insurance.
Yes. And of course, I wouldn't be doing it unless I believe in it. I do. Everybody seems to oh man, I hate my insurance. I pay all the time. But I love it. I've had to use it. But I don't want you guys to have to use your insurance, but you're going to love it when it's there. We do insure the American dream, your house or your car or your boat, your life, your kids. That's what we do. And that's what it is here for, to truly help folks. But I don't want y'all to have to use it.
I know, right? That's something nobody ever wants to use, but it's there for a reason. It has its place.
Yeah, that's just something. I've known Paula for a few years, and I know she provides that genuine customer service, which, in today's society, we've gotten away from that in our business acumen. We've gotten to the digital age. Everything's done online. You can order your health insurance. You can order your car insurance. Everything's online. You pay your bills online. You don't interact with your agent. Heck, some people don't even have agents of record, so to speak. But
you're right.
Having that personal
I got a mailer for Esurance, and I ripped it up and threw it away.
Right.
I did.
Yesterday. You go to get a question answered on your policy, or you have an incident like this happen with a fire or with a water damage or with mold or storm. You want to be able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody to help guide you through that process. And
I don't think anybody wants to read through the FAQs at the library or on their phone when their house has been burned down, right?
No, they don't. They think of a lot different things at that time instead of what's in my policy, and that's what people like Paula are here for.
And for you, that makes a difference. That's how you know what you're doing is right and what you're doing is different than everybody else, because I imagine you see that. You get the people in your office crying that have had the house burned down.
We get the first call in. We've actually even gone out when our clients have been in an auto accident. We've met them out at the scene to talk with them and help them and advise them as people are upset. Same with any type of a home claim as well. We're right there to be with them and for them. As everybody out there listening, their agents, their realtors, their contractors, we are here to help you guys.
Have somebody good, follow your gut instinct, and just,
yes.
You got to follow a lot of times what your gut's telling you, because it's smart. Your subconscious it knows right from wrong, and I think a lot of people ignore that, especially when they're sidebarred with a distress situation.
And another thing I'd like to bring up that's really specific for Florida is there are some subpar carriers out there. We just actually had a company go into liquidation, for anyone listening, called Sunshine State Insurance. They just got liquidated by the state of Florida. So in effect, a homeowner carrier gone bankrupt. Know your carriers and know your agents.
So what does that mean to someone that has that insurance company and their carrier's bankrupt? What does that mean to me if that's my carrier?
That policy just kind of sort of became null and void, and they need to call a new agent right away. Call a new agent, because other carriers can absorb that policy and help them through the process. But it is very scary that in this day and age that can still happen.
Now, do those policies have to be sold off? Are they required to notify their clients? Like, is there any?
Yes, I'm in this particular case, I don't know the details yet. It literally just happened. I haven't gotten much feedback on it. It's been a while since we've had that happen, but it does still currently happen within the state of Florida, more so than other states. So know your carrier. They're rated by third-party entities that are objectionable rating carriers, and we want you to have an A or better rated carrier. You can get an A, A+, A++. Don't go into carriers that might be a B or a C rating. A+ being the best. Of course, F means they're bankrupt.
I know people complain about this, and I had another insurance person on my show before, and one of the things he said that sticks in my mind is, everybody sucks. They hate paying insurance. They complain about it. They say it sucks and this and that. Yeah. But your insurance company needs to be liquid enough and strong enough to pay a claim if, God forbid, you need it. That's why it's there.
Yes, that's why it's there. That is why it's there. And what the reinsurance is for folks out there, that's the company that insures your insurance company. They call it reinsurance. So you've got many, many layers of insurance.
That's interesting. So one of the things that I know we chimed in on during the planning meeting, and I know you all told me that you get this question, is, do I need 3 estimates?
I'll defer that to these guys.
Well, obviously, a smart consumer will want to look for multiple estimates. But in an emergency situation, when you're standing in your condo or in your home and you're standing in 6 inches of water and it's 3 a.m. in the morning, you're not going to want to get 3 estimates.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Most of the restoration contractors that I'm familiar with and been around for a number of years here, along with ourselves, we use a common estimating program that's out there that is very common to the insurance carriers. So it's a matter of doing the same service, and the pricing is pretty much equal all across the board. You want to use somebody that follows those insurance industry guidelines to do that, instead of a fly-by-night company that's going to come in. And, I've seen it many times. I've been asked by a lot of adjusters in the past to do what's called a peer review, look over another company's bill for the services that are provided, and you get people out there that will charge, for something that may be $2,000 or $3,000 worth of services. They have a $12,000 or $15,000 bill because they're not insurance restoration professionals. They don't follow the guidelines. They don't know how to handle things. They may be a licensed contractor. They may be just somebody who decided to get an extractor and a couple of air movers and a dehumidifier in there. But it's a matter of your own particular policy will detail some of what you need to do for a fire, what you need to do for different hazards, whether you need to utilize their preferred vendors to do the restoration, whether you can pick and choose whomever you want, as long as that pricing falls within industry guidelines.
My suggestion, and I think this is true for every industry, including my own, I recommend that you interview 3 different people. And then from there, you need to pick the one that's best for you. But my suggestion would be, make sure you're comparing apples to apples.
Yes.
Right? And if you don't explain it, if you don't understand it, make the person on the other end explain it to you.
What I find the most is when I go out to meet with a homeowner that's had a fire, that's had a mold problem, I try to educate them as much as possible, sometimes to a fault, to the point where it's sort of like drinking from a fire hose. You get more on you than you do in you, as they say. And at times it's bad because you leave them with so much information, they're overloaded with
overwhelmed.
But yeah, I would much rather have them have more information than not enough, so they can make an informed decision. We obviously want them to choose us, but we want them to make the right choice, what's comfortable for them and what's going to do the best job for them, whoever that may be.
Yeah, try to educate them as much as possible.
Watch out for the fire chasers.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where sometimes we educate them too much, and then we kind of, shoot ourselves in the foot, you know. But at the same time, like what Doug is saying, at the same time, I like to give my customers everything up front so they know the do's and the don'ts and so forth, you know.
Well, at the end of the day, you know you've done your job.
Right.
You know, if you give them all the information they need, it's their decision to make.
Yeah,
right.
pretty much.
And like Fabian said, sometimes you shoot yourself in the foot. You give them all the information up front. You let them know in advance. Because there are a number, and he can chime in on this. I'm sure he's seen it the number of years he's had in the industry too, where you're out there and you're giving a bid on a fire job, and there are 3 other bids on that fire job, and yours is probably maybe the most expensive out of all 3. But we try to include as much based upon our experience of what we're going to see as it unfolds, because we know what we're going to encounter based upon the number of years that we've been doing this, where some other people may be coming in, they don't include all the services, which doesn't include all the price. They come in as a low price, and then after the fact, they do.
You know, Doug, baby, the old saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right.
Last thing I want to touch on, because we're almost out of time, is with regards to self-insurance. Remember, we talked about I paid cash for my house and I want to get insurance. What type of insurance should you have, even if you don't want to get a home?
Well, we do hear this a lot, and if people do want to self-insure their building, there is a liability-only product that they can purchase. In other words, they could maybe rebuild their house if it burns down, but gosh, if a child wanders onto your property, swings on the tree, falls and gets hurt, you can buy a liability-only policy. They're very inexpensive, and we do like to share that with folks that are self-insuring. So.
And there's different things that probably up the ante, right? Like if you have a pool, if you're on the water, any of that type of
exactly. And you can get these policies generally starting at a $500,000 in coverage, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, but it's called a liability only. And of course, with most homeowners, you do have liability included in your package as well.
Ballpark range for what
$300,000. For liability only.
On annual premium.
Let's say if you do $1 million, generally $300 to $500 a year, so it's pretty affordable. It's pretty affordable.
Not worth the risk, in my opinion, to not have it. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk. This is your host, Katrina Madewell. Thank you so much for chiming in today with us. You can catch us here on 1340, 1350, and 1400 every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m. and also across the web at tampahometalk.com, Facebook and Twitter, Tampa Home Talk. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch it in its entirety via a podcast. Thank you so much for listening in today. Remember, love where you live or we're going to fix it. We're out.
'Cause it's a long, long way from home. There's no reason to belong. How we end up here at all. And I think it's time to think it's time to think it's time to
love where you live or my mommy will fix it. And we're out.
Ask me about an inside secret to save several hundreds of dollars on your annual homeowner's insurance premium. Text the word WIND, W-I-N-D, to 813-377-2775. Again, 813-377-2775.
Hi, this is Melissa Rogers, owner of SEC Inspection Services. We're so glad that you're listening today, that we're offering you a special deal. If you're purchasing a home, you can have $50 off your full home inspection. And if you're already a client of ours, we're offering 10% off of any other service that we offer. Just give us a call at 727-786-4663 or visit us on the web at secinspection.com.
Curious what your Tampa home is worth? Here's an easy way to find out what homes like yours are selling for in today's market. Text the word VALUE to 813-377-2775 for a free report on Tampa house prices. We'll send you a free report with up-to-the-minute statistics based on all homes for sale sold in your neighborhood over the last 6 months in all price ranges. To get your free report on Tampa Bay house prices, just call or text the word VALUE to 813-377-2775.
If you are a real estate agent and want to keep more of your hard-earned commission, call me today at 727-538-9200 extension 2. This call will change your real estate career.
Curious where your credit score is? Text the word credit to 813-377-2775. Not sure where it needs to be in order to buy? We'll tell you. Simply text the word credit to 813-377-2775 for access to your credit score now.
Hi, I'm Ike Antonio Thomas, Director of Salitas House, where we offer homeownership workshops, pre-purchase counseling, foreclosure intervention counseling for homeowners at risk of losing their home, financial coaching for adults and teens. Come sign up for our program where if you save $1,000, we'll give you $1,000. Call us 813-425-4847. Again, 813-425-4847. You can like us on Facebook or you can find us on the web, SalitasHouse.com.